Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, it is afternoon. It's Angus from the Australian Services Union. Really great that you're joining us today on this special webinar, lunchtime webinar for our members working in the disability sector. So I'll just give it another minute for people to join us. I can see lots of people joining now. We're also recording this so we can send information to our members, because I know that a lot of people are working, they're on shift, they have caring responsibilities, they can't always make it to these catch-ups. But we have so much important information to share with members on our campaigns that I wanted to make sure that we can send it to you all, which is why we will record and send it subsequent to this meeting. But welcome everyone who has joined us. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. This is going to be run as a webinar, so there will be opportunities to ask questions of myself or our guest speaker. You can use the Q&A function in the webinar and we'll pop them in the chat, and we will then try to get to them by the end of the meeting. We'll try to run a quick meeting and be over by 1 o'clock so people can get back to all the other things that no doubt you're doing today. So I'm going to kick off. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So I'm just going to, hold on one second, do the whole share screen thing. Let me just have a look. Second. You'd think I'd be faster at this after a few years of using Zoom now. Sorry about that. Let's have a look. Hold on one second. Okay, can you see that, Fiona? Does that make you got the excellent? So it has been a very, very busy time for our union in the disability sector. I want to welcome everyone to this webinar, and it's great to have a lot of delegates joining us from across the sector today to celebrate some achievements, to update you all on our current campaigns and things that we all need to be doing to make sure that we're continuing to improve the wages and conditions of our members in the disability sector. And I want to start with particular exciting news, which is that just last week, for all of our members in New South Wales, we had the New South Wales Parliament pass legislation for portable long service leave for our sector. This is a huge win that we've been campaigning for many, many years. What this will mean is that from July next year, you will all need to be registered, and I'll get to that in a minute because we're going to help members with that. You will need to be registered, and the government will then count your days working in the sector, and you will then be recognised for your time working in the sector, not just for working for one employer. So we know so many members change jobs, working for multiple employers because different changes in funding or the participants' plans or taking on new participants, etc. So under the current scheme, no one ever gets to 10 years really to have their long service leave. Under the new scheme, you will be able to access long service leave once you've had 7 years working in the sector. So, and it will just be across the providers that you work, it will accumulate and the counting for your leave. But in even better news, you will be able to access it at 6 years for all the workers who register early. Now, they haven't put out details yet about how to register early, but I can promise you that your union will be on top of that, and we will make sure as best as we can that every single union member is able to register early. So we will be contacting you all about that soon, but it's a really good thing to be letting your colleagues know that this is coming. It will start counting your years of service to the sector from July next year, and we will spend that time in the next 12 months to get all of our members registered in the scheme and to make sure that you are registered early so that you can actually access long service leave at 6 years instead of 10, which is the current arrangement, as people would know, for the sector. So this is a really, really big victory. I want to congratulate and thank all of the members who have taken part in this. We've had rallies, we've had lobbying, we've had petitions, we've had a whole heap of activity. And we also got a lot of support from employers in our sector who listened to ASU members, who agreed this was a good thing, and actually came out and said that to the government. In the government's consultations, 96% of workers backed this, and 74% of employers backed it as well. And that's a testament to all the work of members in organising our workplaces, in getting our employers to support these kinds of initiatives that not only benefit all of our members and workers, but actually benefit the whole sector, because it means that more and more people are likely to be staying in the NDIS, because you'll be able to carry your long service leave with you as you change from job to job. So that's like a really, really big win. And I want to thank and congratulate everyone on that victory. Now, pay rises are also coming up, which is another union win. So they'll be starting from the first full pay period in July. And the award increases are going up by 3.75%. So this is basically all thanks to all of you. So what happens when we argue for these pay rises every year is that unions go to the Fair Work Commission and we say workers deserve a pay rise. And we argued for at least 5%. But unfortunately, we're not the only people in the room. Big business show up and they say, actually, they should get nothing, or they should get much lower. And indeed, they were arguing for no more than 2%. And then it's a decision of the Fair Work Commission. And they ultimately decided on 3.75. Not as much as we had hoped, but a lot more than what some of the employer groups were saying workers deserved. And important to remember, if unions weren't there arguing for this, it would only be the employers rocking up saying, pay them 2% or less. So it's thanks to each and every one of you that all of your colleagues will be getting a 3.75% pay rise. And it's really important to remember these pay rises don't fall from the sky. They're not just automatically given every year because the Fair Work Commission wants to give them. It comes from union members being represented in that process, all of you standing up. We had members giving evidence, giving statements about the cost of living crisis, the impact on them and their families, why they need a pay increase. And that all contributed to getting that outcome. Now, we have published the new pay rates and they are available for all members. I think we sent it to you all in emails. It's also on our website, and I think we'll share it in the chat now. Although I've heard the chat for some reason it's been disabled. I don't know why that is the case. It was not meant to be. Hold on a second. I will add, I think it should be enabled now. Apologies for that. You should be able to now raise things in the chat. And I'll try to respond to them at the end, or you can also put questions in the Q&A box and I'll get to them at the end as well. So pay rises are coming. Portable long service leave is coming. Here are the new minimum pay rates for workers in the NDIS. As you can see, we know that level 2.1 is the minimum rate for disability services, and that's what the NDIS funds. And we have a guest speaker who's going to talk about that in a minute. But that means the minimum hourly rate for a permanent worker is going to now be $33.41. And for a casual worker, it's going to be $41.76. That's approximately $50 increase for permanent workers. That's not taking into account extra penalties that you will be getting for shift work. And it's about a $1.50 increase an hour for casual workers. You can scan that QR code and get those rates right now and share them with your colleagues. We'll also share them in the chat and they're available on our union website as well. So that's another great thing to be celebrating. Now, one of the things that we are having to, though, fight to defend our conditions and make sure members don't go backwards are attempts by big business in the NDIS to basically take our conditions backwards in relation to sleepovers. I know many of you here on this webinar would do sleepovers. It's a regular part of work in our sector. But one of the things that we are having to respond to is that a big business group has gone to the Fair Work Commission and sought to change our award to mean that workers could be required to be at work on a sleepover for 28 hours without any overtime or penalty rates. They want to do this by saying that a sleepover is actually a break, and therefore you can do 2 full shifts before and after, and they are standalone shifts which don't attract penalties or overtime, and be required to stay there for a sleepover. Now, that is just ridiculous. That is not going to be sustainable or healthy or safe for workers and for people with disability. And we have an issue where we need to keep workers in this sector and bring more workers to this sector. Where are we going to find the thousands of workers to do 28-hour shifts? So we are having to resist that and run a case against that to stop our conditions going backwards. I want to thank the delegates and members on this call who have been part of preparing for that case, who have signed the petition. The petition we will share in the link. We had a rally outside the offices of this big business group a few weeks ago to demonstrate the level of frustration that frontline workers have when these kinds of changes are proposed that will take conditions backwards. And we're working really strongly to stop that happening, but we need everyone to support that. So I encourage you to sign that petition, let your colleagues know that these changes are being proposed and that we all need to get on board to stop our conditions going backwards. Another thing I want to talk about, and this brings us to our extra special guest speaker that we have today, is we are completely sick and tired of seeing members in the disability sector not paid properly for what they do. As I just said before, we know the minimum rate of pay for a disability support worker on the award is level 2.1 of the SACS stream of the award, or Schedule B. It's not level 1. No one should be paid level 1. It's not Schedule E or the home care rates. That is not meant to be applying to NDIS workers. But too many instances we are seeing now of employers deliberately underpaying their workers and pocketing that money for themselves. Because what we know is that actually the NDIS funding is based on level 2.1 as the minimum. So that's the money that these organisations receive from government that they are meant to pay to you, but then they will pay workers $5 to $10 less and pocket that money. And that's outrageous. It is wage theft. It's fraud as well, I believe, on the system and on the worker and on the participant, and it has to end. So we have had lots of success in fixing this at provider by provider, at getting back pay for workers here and there, but it's become too big an issue, and we now need to actually stamp this out in the award. So we have just launched a case to ban this practice in the award and to make it very clear that if you're working in the NDIS, you cannot be paid less than level 2.1 of the community services stream. And I'm really, really proud to be able to introduce you all now to a great ASU member, Dr. Fiona Macdonald, who is an academic researcher, expert in this issue, who has written extensively on it, who has actually done extensive work talking to our members, understanding how the NDIS works, the nature of your work. To talk a bit, Fiona, about your perspective on this and why there is just so much evidence to demonstrate why Schedule B, level 2, is the correct minimum rate. So over to you, Fiona.
Thank you so much, Angus. It's a privilege to be here and to hear about some of the fantastic achievements of the union. I think that portable entitlements is just such an important win for members. So I'm really pleased to be here. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm on, who are the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. As Angus said, this has been an ongoing problem. It's only a minority of employers, but it really does need to be fixed. There is absolutely no reason why a disability support worker providing support under the NDIS should be employed at SACS level 1 or on the home care schedule of the SHADS award. So when I went to look at this, what I did, along with my colleague, Karen Douglas, was we looked back at Fair Work Commission cases. We looked at the detail of the award and the descriptors, and we looked at what the NDIS says about what workers are required to do. And we looked at NDIS pricing, as well as gathering evidence from workers, pulling stuff in from research that I'd done, but also looking at the descriptions that, there's a really, really big lot of consultation with disability support workers about their roles in Fair Work Commission cases, that all they're all consistent with workers being employed at minimum of level 2.1 on the SHADS award. So what we're seeing is some employers are putting workers on SACS, on the home care award at level 1 or on SACS schedule 1. Now, it's really clear in the definitions of the award. If you have a look at the award, there's a clause that under the definitions, there's actually a note to say that there's no reason that a worker should be on level B merely because they provide services in a private residence. If you're providing disability support services to someone in a private residence, that doesn't make your work any less complex. It doesn't make your responsibilities any less. And so there is absolutely no reason why you should be on that home care award. That home care award was developed and is described, when you read the descriptors, is around aged care work. The Fair Work Commission, the SACS equal pay case, for those of you who are around in 2012, when that equal remuneration case was won, that was accepted by the Fair Work Commission, that disability support workers were on the social and community services, the SACS Schedule B of the award. And it was also accepted all throughout the modern award review case, which was conducted from over 4 or 5 years from 2014. If you setting aside the home care award, if you look at the actual SACS schedule, nobody should be on level 1. It's really clear that if a level 1 employee works under really close direction, well, they don't say really close in the award, but they work under close direction, undertake routine activities, perform really clearly defined activities with outcomes readily attainable, that does not apply to disability support work. So SACS level 2 is the minimum. So that's what the award says. Now we take the NDIS and have a look at what that says. As Angus has pointed out, NDIS pricing is based on level 2 at an absolute minimum. So employers are getting that money. And when that pricing was established, it was noted that what were they? They said when the pricing levels were very first established, which still forms the basis of how they're set out now, it was said that they were identified as providing for support workers employed at the reasonable minimum qualification and experience level. So the NDIS is assuming that employers are paying at that level, they're pricing services at that level. So to be employing somebody under that level is wage theft, we think. The other thing is the NDIS Code of Conduct, which you should all be vaguely familiar with, as you're required to be. That when you read that, and we did a pretty kind of close analysis of that, it sets out the mandatory minimum standards for all workers supporting delivering NDIS services, not just support workers. But all the scenarios in that code of conduct, or most of them, actually apply to support workers. And when you look at those scenarios, they clearly have qualifications, experience, capability, skills, judgment, all that would apply to a level 2 worker as a minimum, not to a level 1 worker. And that's even backed up by another NDIS piece of work, which I think is really important. The NDIS, when it first started up, the NDIS Quality and Safety Commission went out and did this massive research exercise talking to people with disability in the NDIS about what they wanted from their support and what was needed, and developed the NDIS workforce capability framework that sets out, and it's described as articulating the Australian government's expectations around workforce quality. That clearly sets out what's expected of support workers, and those expectations are clearly aligned with level 2 as an absolute minimum. So for all of those reasons, there's just no basis for workers to be being employed at level 1 or on the home care schedule.
Thank you, Fiona. And if people have questions for Fiona, just please do put it in the Q&A box. But yeah, it's something that it's so important to hear that comprehensive sort of outline of all of the reasons and evidence as to why level 2 is the minimum rate of pay for disability workers. We have used the research and work of Fiona to actually support a lot of members to get paid properly. And I should say we have had a lot of success at getting this fixed. There are some providers that when we've alerted them to not paying people properly, they have fixed it, and that's good. But there are many, unfortunately, and it's an increasing number, who we believe are deliberately engaging in this conduct to try to rip off workers and rip off the NDIS. As a union, we have actually reported 36 providers to Fair Work who have been underpaying in New South Wales alone, and they're providers that have refused to accept Fiona's arguments and our arguments and the evidence of what their workers do. On top of that, we are currently investigating 60 providers where we're in the process of discussions on behalf of members about inappropriate wages. If you are not paid the correct minimum rate, that level 2.1 rate, you need to contact us, and we will do as much as we can to help organise your workplace, raise this issue with your employer and resolve it. And as I said, we have resolved it in many cases, but it was becoming too much. And as I said, enough is enough. We can't just be going out there, putting out spot fires and going employer by employer to fix this issue when you're now speaking about 60 to 100 employers that we know of. That's where there are union members that tell us this. And I think there's probably a lot more where there aren't union members who don't even know this is happening to them, who don't know what the correct rate of pay is, and we're not even seeing it. So that is why we've decided to try to fix this situation for once and for all across the board, and have launched a case in the Fair Work Commission that would essentially ban the payment of workers at the home care levels and make it very clear that level 2 in the community services stream is the correct minimum rate for disability workers. But it's really important that we have the support of all workers in the sector. We have a petition that has been shared in the chat. I'd love everyone to sign that and share it in all of your networks, whether they're members or not, whether they're participants, friends, or family. Because when there are attempts to drag down the wages of the workforce, it affects everyone. Because what will happen if we do nothing is that this will become normalized. People will then just expect that it's okay to pay people this rate. And then for all of our members who are being paid properly, it could impact them, because those providers might then say, oh, well, it seems as if everyone else is doing that and there are no consequences, I'll do it too. So that is why we're taking this step. There was coverage in the news about this when we launched the case. The Daily Telegraph did a big report on it. We will be exposing some of these providers in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that as we start to name and shame the people who are doing the wrong thing. But we really need that critical mass of support from workers across the whole sector to demonstrate that this is a problem that needs to be fixed to the Commission, and also to make sure that the government steps in to help our case, because they are able to actually go along to the Fair Work Commission too and give their own view. And of course, we want them to be standing alongside us and saying, yes, we agree with the union, this needs to be fixed, especially considering that's what they fund. I mean, the government's being ripped off here too, folks. Everyone is. Everyone's being ripped off. Workers, participants, the government, taxpayers. It's just outrageous. It has to end. So thank you, Fiona, for going through that with us and all the work that you've done with our members on demonstrating why this is so important. So I really want to thank you again. I've just looked in the chat. I haven't seen questions specifically on this, so I might just move forward to our other few items, and then I'll get to the rest of the questions. So back to my share screen. There we go. So yeah, as you can see here, we've had this case is now being covered quite extensively in the media, and we wanted to update members on where this case come from, why we're doing it, and what you all need to do to help us get this over the line. I do anticipate the case in itself could take at least 6 months. It's not going to be quick. Once you go to the Fair Work Commission, and some of the delegates here will know this, they control everything. Once you're in there, they set the time, they set the schedule. It's so, you know, we can't, we're in their hands really. And realistically, these things can take up to 6 months or more. And in the meantime, we will be fighting on the ground, employer by employer, people who are doing the wrong thing, while we also pursue this in the court. Last update I wanted to give you all, though, is that we're trying to also improve our award to actually make it that people can get paid more than level 2 as well. And we know that one of the problems in our award is that it was written a long time ago. In many cases, it does not describe the complex nature of your work. So even if you are paid correctly at the minimum rate of level 2, there isn't capacity for you to go into level 3 or higher in the work that you do. There isn't recognition of the complexity of the work, the skill and qualifications you have, the experience you have. And we know there are more advanced skills that people have. We know that there are participants that are more complex, where the work is more difficult and should be paid better as a result of that. So we're also preparing to basically improve our award and to lift the wages up and to improve the classification system. It's a broad campaign called Skilled, Respected, Equal. It's come from a whole lot of consultations and discussions with all of you and members throughout last year. And that's where it was very clear, and we had a national summit of the whole ASU just in May. And I know that some of you at this meeting were at that summit, where we resolved that we need to stop just putting out fires, stop just trying to make sure people are paid the correct base minimum, but also go on the offensive and actually seek to improve and lift the wages and conditions in our sector. And we want to come around and talk to as many of you and your colleagues about that campaign. That one is a bigger case that we are also hoping to start in the coming months, but that will take longer than 6 months, because fixing the whole award system is a bigger endeavor, and it will involve a lot of different parties and employers and funding agencies coming to the table in that process, which will make it longer. But we want to be effective. We want to be organized. We want to make sure that we've got really good arguments, really good evidence about how complex the work that you do is. And for that, we'll need your help. So on that one, on a more positive note on how we're trying to lift standards, not just keep them where they are, I'd love you all to contact your organizer, because we're going to come out and talk to members about this campaign in detail and what we need to do to keep on working together to improve the conditions of our members. So that's been a really big update today. We've talked about winning portable long service leave for all of our members in New South Wales. We've talked about winning great pay increases that are coming from July. We've talked about defending sleepovers. I mean, we don't want sleepovers should be improved, not go backwards. And we've talked about defending the base minimum rates of pay in our sector, but also moving forward to actually improve our award. And I'm going to thank you all for coming to hear these updates today, and that you can share with your colleagues. Now, I'm just going to go quickly to some of the questions and comments that we've had. Someone's asked about if you register early, and how much leave do you get for portable long service leave? So at 6 years, you would get 6 weeks long service leave. So it's prorated. So that is what people would get at 6 years if they register early. I also note that there are questions about and concerns from people like Denise, around the 28-hour shifts being a WHS issue. Definitely, completely agree for that. And I've also got some comments here around pricing from Jacqueline and Mark on your particular pay issue, which is probably best if you contact us on that separately, so as not to talk about people's individual circumstances in front of everyone, but we can definitely help Jacqueline and Mark on those two questions if you want to contact us. And I note also the comments again from union legend Michelle Carrig in the chat as well that, you know, there actually are some pricing categories for more complex prices as well, but workers don't often see the benefit of that either. So a part of our award case will need to be linking some of that complexity in funding to actually the pay that workers should get and are expected to get and deserve to get. So lastly, just in the last couple of minutes, a quick update for all of you on what our member benefits are, because while we're fighting for all of these things and wanting to fix the award and provide pay increases for everyone, there are some things that only union members will ever get to access. And I want to just quickly go through these with you all. Workplace advice. Obviously, you have access to our individual and confidential advice line, and we can support with anything from change at workplace to roster changes, disciplinary meetings, redundancies. We can support you in your workplace, online in meetings like this, over the phone, so many ways that we can support people. And that is only for union members that we provide that support. We also provide protection to workers, so you get journey insurance. You also have professional indemnity insurance. So if something happens, an incident at work that ends up in the NDIS commission or in a coronial inquest or in some other inquiry about the work that you were doing and whether or not you were properly trained in that and whether was the employer at fault, were you at fault, there's insurance the union provides to members and only members in those situations. We also have access to union health insurance and legal support. We provide professional development. I know a lot of you would have done the ASU college webinars. We have career advice and launchpad courses that can help you upskill and support you being on top of all the latest changes and trends in NDIS policy and regulation that will help you do your job better. And also we have lots of discounts and savings. It definitely does pay to be union. You can get discounts at all the major supermarkets, at Dan Murphy's, petrol, appliances, holiday units, travel, also cheaper first aid courses, and other accredited courses through the Red Cross and through the RMIT. So, and I know of many members who are using all of these savings right now because of the cost of living crunch that we're all facing. And it does make and can save hundreds and hundreds of dollars per year, much more than your membership fees you can get back through accessing all of those savings. So that is a bit of an update there. There's a couple of people in the chat who have just asked specifically about their current pay rate. If I could get you to contact us directly so we can check that with you, that'd be the best way to do that. And I want to thank you for coming along to this short, sharp lunch webinar to hear the update on all of the things that your union is doing with you, for you, by your side. And I want to thank Dr. Fiona Macdonald for sharing her insights and that excellent summary of all the evidence that demonstrates why no one should be paid level 1 and no one should be paid on the home care rates if you're a disability support worker in the NDIS. Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. This has been recorded, so we will share it with all of you and your colleagues. I know many people couldn't get here, or you might want to share it with them as well. Have a great afternoon, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thanks so much for coming along. Bye, everyone.